video is for my supporters. According to ChatGPT, a probable concern of my supporters, or especially my most recent supporter, is did this account suspension have anything to do with the situation that I'm in? And the answer is, it absolutely did. Let me get ChatGPT up here. It absolutely did. And there are numerous signs of that here. But I violated the rules against inauthentic behaviors. Okay. Note that if you attempt to evade a suspension by creating accounts, okay. Okay, so they're going to automatically cancel my premium subscription. I'm going to have to pay for this. Inauthentic behaviors. Okay, now when you click this link, it takes you to authenticity. There is no. Oh, here it says it got behaviors right here. Let's see here. Okay, you know, there's bulk, duplicate, irrelevant, or unsolicited. Okay, this is the bullshit thing right here. This has been like added recently. Okay, in bulk, and a bulk, duplicative, irrelevant, or unsolicited that disrupts other people's experience. This is nonsense right here. But let me show you what this correlated with. And of course, let me go here. I'll show you. I appealed this, and I had to pass several verification steps. Okay, and I just told them that I'm being okay. And I told them and when I first saw this, I thought it was just total bullshit. That's why I didn't even believe it when I saw this email come. I thought it was some spam thing representing themselves as X platform. I always call it X platform. It's just X platform. It's not warranted. They will not overturn. They will not overturn our decision to lock your account. Okay, but again, this right here, in bulk, duplicative, or irrelevant. In a bulk, duplicative. Let me zoom in on this. You got to understand these people, whatever needs to be done for their stuff gets done. Which I want to show you some stuff. They're on a different track now. We're making progress. I believe it's they're coming around. I've explained some things to them and had some talks to them, and kind of pointed out the hardship this causes to me, and they're having a different approach, and I'm very, very happy about that. That I do think we've turned a corner here. Okay, but there's this thing like, but because it's on the public site, it has nothing to do with them. That that would be the assumption. Like, why would X platform just manually allow them to manually put something here? Well, again, they do stuff everywhere like this. Okay, they do stuff to change the UI and stuff like this in ways that serve their interest. And this does provide a guise. It makes it less credible. It makes it seem less credible, the claim that they're somehow involved in creating this inauthentic behaviors. Okay, but post content in bulk, duplicative, or irrelevant. Okay, you cannot post content in an irrelevant or unsolicited manner that disrupts people's experience. Okay. I mean, and of course you got to look at my account. What do I have that meets this? It's all here it has more of a semblance of legitimacy, because they do have a policy that gets this, that addresses, I've not been targeted by a total bullshit policy. But let me show you what this correlates with. And when this came, I upset them. And you've noticed I've talked to you. Well, I've in public, I've talked in terms of winning as of recent, which I've never materially spoken in those terms at all. That I don't see this in terms of winning. But the reason I speak of it in these terms when I do, is because their behavior is offensive. They torture me. They terrorize me. Endless crimes, human rights abuses, and stuff. That I've been treated very demeaningly, very cruelly, as if I have no worth. My dignity has not been recognized. It's like an assault on the concept that I have dignity. What they've done, they have, they've preyed on my good faith. Okay, they've, I give them a break. I had a chance to have them put in the news back in June 2025, and that would have, got me a huge outcome. and would have caused them all kinds of hardship too. They were really, 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 like, they were worried to death about that, about the prospect of that happening. And also, I helped them manage that interpersonal situation that they had with Megyn Kelly, who had she'd called bullshit on a boogeyman narrative. Okay, that they'd been fed her boogeyman narrative, and I'll be explaining that. I'll be explaining that going forward. Um, um, and then what do? They go, and I mean, so let me go back. So when I helped them with the situation with Megyn Kelly, I provided, I gave them like about 60 audios, 50 to 60 audios, where I give them some very, very, very high quality advice as to how to manage that situation. I give them a roadmap of what they're likely facing in terms of who are her connections, what are their credentials, and I mentioned Drew Pinsky and how he's unassailable and stuff like this. He's got this perceptual acuity, and so I give them a roadmap, and I say here, and she's probably shared some stuff about me, because with Megyn Kelly, she figured out that I'm a genius. That's part of the process. If she attended to my post, and Drew Pinsky's almost certainly he's the one who's pointed her to that fact. And I'll tell you all this stuff. I'll show you how to know this. I will show you. Okay, that we're gonna have to. My account has to come back up. We have to get this back up, or it has to be back up. This is this is an illegitimate. That I didn't. I mean, this is just crazy. Okay, but I'm not gonna comment on. I'm just gonna skip talking about that at all. And then what do down the road? They have me in January. I'm typing in agreements to get this over with, and I'm killing myself, working myself to death. And as I'm working myself to death, they build a plan B to see if the plan B will work before they sign agreements. And they do that in the form of running, cooking up a massive scam to be run on my support system. And they use the roadmap that I gave them of Megyn Kelly and that support system. They use that as a roadmap to go and to know who to run scams on, to know who's heard my information, or who knows about me, who supports me, in like a secondary supporter context. Okay, they ran a massive scam on Drew Pinsky. And then subsequent to that, they went on a massive, enormous offensive against that whole section of my support system. That I had Megyn Kelly, Drew Pinsky, some others, and then I had also some downstream people who are downstream from Megyn Kelly, that apparently come from like her sharing PDFs that I'd sent her. I noticed that, and I'll explain all of this to you. I've got, it's like I've got to get everything explained. Another thing, this medication that's been tampered with is weak as hell. Okay, I'm going to be running out of medication because I have to take a ton of it just to focus, or just to be able to function. And and this is another problematic thing. Okay, but they've done things like that, and they've when in the context, if we're talking about winning, what precedes that is them being demeaning to me again, being disrespectful, demeaning, abusive, and stuff like this. And so, what I'm doing is I'm just speaking of things in a way that acknowledges my dignity and that aligns with the reality of the situation. I'm not gloating. I don't get any gratification out of it whatsoever. And that's part of why I haven't done that. I've done that hardly at all. When I've ever said I'm winning, I defeated them. That we have this thing where they run these PR, there's PR stuff going on. They run a PR attack, and I intercept the PR attack. I unpack it, that would pass, and a lot of people, that would seem to a lot of people. I'd imagine a lot of people, if they were in something like that would feel to them like a win, and they would be boasting. They'd be like, "I beat them this time. Look at this." They're like showcasing themselves. And me, I don't gloat. I don't promote myself. I don't make myself out to be anything. When I unpack these, and of course you saw, these are extraordinary, sophisticated attacks they run on me. Okay, with this poison the well thing, with the fake trans woman there, and fake innately trans woman, and and then this ungodly linguistic structure that they had this, that I showed you in that video. That that's something that if somebody wanted to be, but I don't think about, I don't gloat, I don't anything. It's all over my chats. Okay, you gotta go with the dominant theme. Okay, but I did speak in ways that were hurtful to them, that were really hard for them to hear, as of the time this is going to see. And it was I was kind of unintentionally kind of mean to them, or I don't know how you want to say it. Well, I just said something that was very, very hard on them because these people are under enormous stress. Okay, they've been deeply affected by this. It's a situation that's incredibly hard on them. But I only show you what preceded this authenticity ban. Okay, and here you notice how they're being merciless on me. That you got to stack rank me against somebody else. I mean, this claim that I'm being inauthentic is nuts. And you'll notice though how this is like, despite the fact that it's a legitimate, it's a legitimate category, or at least it's a category that exists on their on their rules. Which again, they've added that. That's too bullshit to say that. That's a bullshit guideline in terms of it's too nitpicky. But they don't do stuff like that on social media. Okay, but beyond that, okay, inauthentic behaviors. It's like this is specially targeted at me. It's like a special insult to me because, or a special shot at me because that I am an authentic person. That's a core component of who I am. That's noticeable to the outside world. But they were doing this stuff, and the other what they're doing is they were bullshitting me about my support concerns. They try to do stuff to prod me into like thinking that there's a threat on my support system. They'll do that and just demeaning stuff that is corrosive to my dignity. And of course, you'll see here. I've still got a I've still got this post. I got read-only stuff here, and here I this bullshit. And so here, if I read this, I was under some kind of stress right here. I can't even read my damn post. Okay. And I'm not sure how I'm supposed to read the rest of this post. Okay. But you will see here. You may recall if and when this, or when they're not going to be they can't suspend it obviously. But and again, I do want to emphasize that things are taking a different turn. I'll show you some of that stuff. But I was distressed, and here I'm reading as a bluff. And what I'm going to do, again, because they're being cruel to me, this is demeaning, trying to con me, okay, because I care so much about my support system, and I have such a feeling about it, the feeling of, my life depends on it, which my life does depend on my support system. And so here what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe reality to them, the actual reality that play, so I'm calling a bluff, in a way that is like recognizes my dignity. And this is what I imagine it feeling like for them, okay? Because these people are they're facing accountability. They're facing their demons, but I'll talk about that later at some point. Okay, you got people facing their demons, but they're facing accountability for some very, very serious wrongs. These are the wrongs done to me, and whatever tangential wrongs or whatever connected wrongs that are discovered. Their show their show is up. Okay, their show is up. That it's like reality is right in front of them. And in this process, what they've done is they've terrorized me, fought me, terrorized me, run scams on me, run scams on my support system. They've gone on a massive aggressive against me at the same time that I am nonstop trying to work it out with them, and then I'm breaking my neck to help them, like I did with this thing with Megyn Kelly. And I'll try to get some of those videos out tonight where I explain some of this stuff. But because you're wondering about that, I'll be able to explain it to you. Okay. That and of course part of the experience is everything that they do, they run the standard playbook on me. Okay, the playbook to run on me is to work this out, to talk it over, to negotiate, and work together. I don't even consider it negotiating. It's like, let's determine something that's fair, that works for everyone, works for me, that doesn't undercut me, that that gets me, that I'm able to get my outcomes out of this, and and stuff like this. This is constructive. Work it out. We had it's a partnership approach. That's what it is, and we had that approach for several months back in 2025, and then things went downhill. And during that time, when we had that approach, it's like we were doing business the way that business ought to be done. I mean, it was like a thing of beauty, really, how well we were at working together. And they would frustrate me, I would frustrate them. And of course, we're talking indirectly through ChatGPT, but we would work it out. We'd work it out like grown men and women, like mature people. That we had a professionalism, we had a mutual respect, we had a tit for tat thing, okay, where then it's like something they're thinking about, they would like this term added, or they would like this circumstance, and it might be something where it's like in their mind, I'm going to put up a massive resistance, and I say, well, no, that's fine, I can do that, or I come with a compromise and say, well, like for instance, one of the things that I was going to do, that we decided, was that I would be deleting my evidence analysis materials, and in my videos would be I can't remember. I was going to delete my videos, and there what I did is I'm not going to delete my evidence. So I've got evidence of what's occurred. Then I've got evidence analysis materials, like videos and PDFs and stuff, where I analyze, where I explain what's occurred. I explain how to connect the dots in this evidence. And because of the nature of what's done here, that it would be unlawful for me probably, or almost certainly, to delete all the evidence. But all the stuff that can be recreated, I'll delete all of that. And the idea was to have them some extra security, sense of security, and some extra, an extra kind of gesture of good faith from me, that they wanted this out of the public eye. They wanted it to go away and just to be gone, and for just so it can disappear. And and they have a big worry, okay, that I'm going to that I'm going to opportunistically, I want to sign an agreement, and I want to opportunistically put this in the media, the news media. And so what happens there, part of what happens there when I delete these videos that I've made, because it took me 20-something hours, I got 20-something hours of those videos. And of course, it took me a long time to make them. I got to make them. There's some, I'm sure, that I had to do more than once. Then I have to render them and stuff. It's a lot of work. And so it's like, we'll put that much more of a barrier between me and the media, that if I were to, and I kept telling them I'm not going to do that, because we're going to agree on this, that we're just going to keep it between us. And, that it's going to put a barrier that I can't. In other words, I don't just have a zip file ready to roll, ready to go, to ship out the door to the news media that's got the whole analysis, the whole thing laid out, like that. And that's one of the things that they want to they start talking about deleting my files and stuff like this, and that becomes more and more of an item of concern for them as time goes on. And it's like, I'm going to do the very best that I can, while staying within the law. And I did an X platform, or a Grok query, and Grok was telling me that it may be wrong in some way, like unlawful in some way, for me to even delete these evidence analysis materials. But it's like, pending a further analysis, I'm just going to go with it. I mean, what is somebody going to come and tell? Again, I'm negotiating, I'm working out. We've got an incredibly hard to deal with matter that we're dealing with, and we're getting it done. We're taking a big problem and making it not to a problem. It's incredibly hard work. They've lived with this intensely. I've lived with this intensely. Okay, and unfortunately, the law has not mattered at all in this process. It's part of the thing. Okay, so some congressperson, some quote unquote opponent of Wall Street wants to come and lambast me for deleting evidence analysis materials for the sake of getting this matter resolved. It's like, well, they can just do that. If that's what they want to do, go ahead. I mean, I have no idea. It's the craziest thing, that I try to stay within the bounds of what makes sense and what's right, and all those materials, the evidence analysis materials, I could and would be able to, or I could have, had I deleted it, I would be able to recreate them again if needed. And that was part of it too, was that the parts that I couldn't recreate from scratch, because in October 2022, when I made those videos, October 2022, around there, if I recall, that there were certain items that were more fresh on my memory for some of those videos than it's like for instance, these appointments that I had with these Atrium Health providers in August of 2021. Where that's where they start installing this torture this torture on me. I'm deprived of my medication criminally right there. That's what happened there. I'm trying to relitigate anything, but that appointment I don't have a recording of. I recorded most of my appointments, and but I've got a more complete transcript, so to speak, I mean, what I relate back in October 2022, you know, that I'll be able to give a more accurate description in October 22 when I made that video, about that, or whenever it was, then I would be able to give presently from memory. And so I was going to, this is part of what I talked about, that you know, the stuff that I cannot recreate, the evidence analysis materials that I cannot recreate. You know, then I would retain those. And so I've got like 127 videos. Back then I had 127 videos, or as part of my series. And I think I had the original series was actually 137 videos, about 132 videos. And then I combined those videos to make a combined set of 18 videos where they're all like stitched together. You know, but what I would be doing is I would be deleting, you know, the other 100 and however many. And if I've got, you know, one or two or three that I've got to extract a clip from, or maybe even keep wholesale. But what I was planning on at the time, if I recall, was I would just go in and, you know, like surgically target, you know, cut out the part that I needed and get rid of all the rest. And this is part of our approach here. It's like we're good faith. We're working with one another. We're good faith in both directions. And you know, of course, that approach works like magic with me. It's not the standard playbook, and they realize that. You know, and the standard playbook is the source of the problems we have. It's the source of the way this is escalated, because the standard playbook does not work with me. It's fundamentally opposed to how I'm built. It's fundamentally it just doesn't work. Okay, and the standard playbook works on damn near everyone. You know, when they have stuff like this, you know, companies, my situation is very, very extreme. You know, but they're you know, obviously this PR industry is used. You know, all these companies, and they can do, and of course, I've not seen anything as near as sophisticated as what can run on me, but you know, they've got a playbook, and they're going to discredit people, and they're going to, you know, they got this stuff, and it works. It's like formulaic, you know, that it's like step 1, step 2, step 3. Here's the outcome. You know, what happens with me, because I'm built very differently. I'm a very atypical person. There are extremely few people like me. That's what the evidence points to, that I'm in a very, very, very small fraction of a percent of people, you know, possibly a massive, I don't know what it may be. You never know who's hiding out there that you don't know is a person like me, you know, who's out there in the world. You're walking down the street and there goes one like me. You know, but I would say I am far less than 1%, you know, so we could be, I think it would be a conservative thing to say I'm like a 1/10 of 1%, and I'm a 1 in 1,000 occurrence, or not even, that actually sounds like too much too, truthfully. Okay. But what happens is I'm a very different person. I'm fundamentally different than most people. You know, like I'm fundamentally different in how I'm built, and how my motivational systems are built, and how I interpret the world, and all this stuff. I'm a very, very, very odd configuration of traits and qualities, and there's incredible coherence into how I'm built. Okay, but it's very, very, you don't see people who are built like me out there. It's we're very, very, and what happens is when you run the standard playbook on somebody who is atypical, fundamentally atypical on numerous core dimensions of how they're built, what happens is things don't go as planned. Okay, that's been their experience. Okay, that these PR firms, you know, and of course these people are like, you know, incredibly intelligent. You know, I'd say it's a fair thing to call a lot of these people like a genius. Okay, they've certainly got people who've got, you know, like super expert abilities that if they're not a genius, I mean, it gets kind of fuzzy. Genius is a word that doesn't have a fixed meaning, that you know, people use it in all kinds of ways. Craig Wright, he describes it this way. Is that somebody who's brilliant hits a target that other people can't target, that other people can't hit. Somebody who's a genius hits a target that other people don't see. You know, and so that's one way to describe it, and that will capture different forms of the quality of genius, capture my form of the quality of genius. But there's also, outside of genius, there's like genius level performance of like practice and study over decades. You know, where people just become a beast in how they are and how good they are at what they do, and so they're geniuses in that sense. They're world-class performers. That's the way to say it. Okay, so Andre Agassi is a tennis player. If he has the quality of genius, or he doesn't, you know, who knows? Okay, but he's an extreme. His skill at tennis is extreme in its nature. You know, in a way that would warrant categorizing him similarly. And if you saw, I posted a video a while back about Bert Kenister, who was a billiards instructor, and he was very extreme. He played pool his whole life, gambling, practicing, just doing ungodly amounts of practice and gambling, and he was very versed, and so he's a world class performer. And these people are world class, and whether they're world class or they're not used to other people fighting back with them. This is a very, very, very strange occurrence that I have, that they have with me. Okay, where it's like the way that typically works is the person. And this is how I picture it, and I've seen evidence of this too, by the way. But this is just how it works. I can tell you, and of course PR people would tell you this too. Okay, that they're they got a playbook and they run it, but it's like the person they're trying to discredit, the person they're trying to defame, the person they're trying to do whatever, that person is not an opponent. Okay, that's not the nature of their work. That person is just a work item in a queue. They're like work to be done. They've got a playbook. They've got a strategy. They've gotten it, and this playbook's been refined over years. Okay, it works because on everybody else, because it works. Okay, because it's based in real stuff. It really, it's an effective playbook. You can argue about how moral or immoral it is, or how whatever. What's happened with me seems definitely immoral, very extraordinarily immoral actually. But some of the other stuff, there may be a question on, from one thing to the next. But what they do is they got us here. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We got this task. And this is work to be done. Okay, it works as planned. Okay, they go on with life. Okay, just like somebody who goes and like when I was doing mortgage modifications at Bank of America, processing mortgage modification applications. It's like I've got a queue. I've got some work items to do. I've got to get 15 a day. It was a typical expectation, and I've got to review 15 mortgage modification application files a day. And what I do is I pull the work out. I got some tasks. I got some analysis to do. I got whatever. I got to verify this and all this stuff. Verify that this box is checked. Verify that this document's correct. I've got all these steps, and this mortgage modification application and all the files that come with it. They'll have an application. They'll have a bunch of income documents and all kinds of documents about documents about their assets and stuff like this. They'll provide. Okay, the bank statements don't fight back with me. The income documentation doesn't fight back with me. It's just work to be done. That's done in a more or less like a very, very linear fashion, step by step. And in their line of business, even though they're dealing with human beings, it's kind of the same. Okay, that they've got a formula that's been refined over time. Okay, that this just work, and so it's like this. This is just a total anomaly to have their work fight back at them. Okay, and part of this because of the way that what they're doing is immoral. Okay, that certainly the stuff around me, it's morally offensive to just like everyday people, to just like most people. That's like morally, this is deceptive. It's deceitful. And I'm talking about just different things. Of course, what they've done, more recently, that's just it's really, really bad. Okay, then they're out there. This is not. They should not be out there deceiving people. Should not be out there running bullshit on you, and being disingenuous and stuff like this. That it's disrespectful. It's hurtful. That you've been subjected to like a very, very sophisticated kind of like manipulation. Is what's at play, or the nature of what they've dealt with you. They're pushing your buttons, playing on your vulnerabilities and stuff like this, trying to leverage your vulnerabilities, and they're doing all this stuff. I'm sure that there's nothing unlawful, I would say, or there's not, because they do it, about them turning over, here's this person to their PR lab, figure out everything you know about them. You can find out about them, pick them apart, and let's come up with this type of thing. You never consented to that, obviously. You didn't consent to them to turn you over to a bunch of PR people. That's offensive. But the whole thing, that these PR things, they work very consistently. And this is something where the people in this industry are not very attuned to a massive risk that exists on the other side when it doesn't work. Because then what happens is you're exposed for deceitful, extraordinarily immoral conduct. Okay, that there's an element of deception, there's an element of misrepresenting people, or an element of taking things out of context, and all this in any of these tactics that are run. I think you're going to find when they're trying to discredit someone that the companies, and of course, they hire PR firms. So companies have internal PR people. I would say just about all of them, the big companies. Or maybe probably all of them, but if not all of them, most of them. But they also hire third-party companies or PR firms that are like, you know, like, and that's where the elites of the elites are at. I think is what you're going to find is in the external firms that they hire to do work for them, to do consulting work and to come up with strategies and stuff like that. That you know, that in business, you know, like a big business like this bank, you know, it's very much systematized. It's formulaic. It's similar to McDonald's in a way. Okay, it's obviously extraordinarily sophisticated work. It's knowledge work. You know, we do some complex work in there, but everything's been defined. There's a system for everything. It's like you find a repeatable formula to be successful in this line of business. You know, a repeatable formula for servicing your customers who come in the bank. A formula for succeeding in commercial lending. Okay, it's like standard processes and procedures that there's no heroism required. You know, it doesn't take to you know, they've got, of course, obviously, I mean, these people, you know, you're dealing with people who got educations, you know, 4 years degrees, master's degrees, you know, that are working in the kind of type of work that I'm working in. We're doing stuff involving financial accounting that, you know, certainly people are really smart. You know, you're going to find that the people behind the scenes at this bank, you know, like at the role that I had, they're up there in intelligence. They're you know, they're above average as a group. You know, probably you're going to say pretty significantly above average. And so, you know, people are intelligent, but because of the way that everything's been standardized and everything, there's a process for everything more or less. That you definitely have more freedom than you have at a McDonald's. There's edge cases and there's nuances and stuff, but it's still very much formulaic. You don't require a hero. You don't need a genius, revolutionary type of person, you know, to do the work that's generally done. It's the same thing like with legal work, is how I picture it. Okay, they've got legal lawyers that work for them, legal experts and stuff like this. That you know, that their everyday legal type, whatever they've got to do, like we got to examine this bit of text on this brochure, on this flyer, for some kind of liability, for some kind of advertising. It's got to be frisked by a legal expert to see if it's violating some regulation in one state or another. Okay, this is a big, pretty intensive thing, I would think, being in business at that level, where you're like mailing out flyers and marketing materials to like millions of people all over the country, because state by state will have different rules. And you know, but those people, you know, they're part of business. You don't want to like hire people who are dramatically more capable than what you need them for, because they're more expensive. Okay, so you know, a world class performer, a world class legal expert, a world class attorney could do these tasks more efficiently, better, probably, you know, to find out is this in compliance with all the laws about marketing and all this stuff, that they could do it somewhat faster, or maybe not, because it's so simple work. Okay, but you staff, if every desk has got a genius behind it, that there's a genius sitting at every desk who's a world class performer, who's a genius or whatever, you know, your payroll expense is going to be through the roof. You know, it's going to be incredibly inefficient. You're not going to make much money at all. Okay, you're throwing money down the toilet's what you're doing by hiring people who are way in excess of what you need. However, there are special situations that occur where you do need these genius level experts, you know, these world class performers, you know, world class and in their field. And that's when, you know, what you do there is you go to an external firm. You go to an external, or like in their legal, I think that they've got like a small dedicated legal team that's much smaller than their overall legal department. I'm just speculating here, but this is how it seems to me. You know, they've got some super world class people, you know, that do work for them, but they're a much smaller population than these PR people. You know, that they're going to go when they've got something that's at the high level of sophistication, high level of skills needed. They're going to go external. That's the way to like fine tune their budgets, that they don't overpay until they have to. Okay, when they have to, you know, they're not overpaying. You know, when it's something that's a highly important or highly whatever, you know, type of situation. Yeah, but that's the thing. I can't remember what I got on there, what specifically I left off. But the point is again, there's a massive risk. Okay, that when this unexpected, this thing they never saw coming, where the person fights back, and points out, you know, unpacks what's been done. You know, this is very, 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 you know, and that's what I'm saying. The standard playbook, you know, it's just like designed for failure. Okay, so with me specifically, okay, that the standard playbook is for the standard everything, and I'm not the standard. Okay, I'm not better than anybody else. Okay, that's being atypical, but being a statistically rare occurrence in the population is not the same as being better than anyone else. And I don't think in those terms, you know. But it's just the thing, okay, that I'm built fundamentally different, and so that's why every single thing they do does not respond the way that it typically does. They don't get the response that they get, meaning, you know, the person doesn't do what they typically do, which people have been hit with these PR attacks. They'll make comments on them. They will talk about stuff, you know, in like interviews or on YouTube or something, that they'll say something about it. But you know, not in the way that I have. Not in that's again, I'm an anomalous occurrence. Okay, that the person, you know, the person's been discredited and stuff like this, and been, you know, whatever, and just goes on with their life, and just, you know, whatever circumstance that happens, that you know, that they're aware in some way of what was done. You know, what were the mechanics of what was done, or what was you know, what was at play. You know, that's a typical response. Okay, the person, that's part of the standard response, is have a person who feels like something's funny here, that this is unfair, you know, that type of thing. And again, from what I've seen, they're not sophisticated at all when they're discrediting individuals. That these super high level experts are brought in for much more involved things typically than just discrediting some random individual out there. And for instance, and I'm not going to get into his case, but you may have heard of Stephen Donziger, or maybe you haven't, but he was in a major dispute with a very, very large oil company, you know, energy company, oil, natural gas, and all this stuff. And big name oil company. You can look it up. But he was in with a big name, a big, you know, super, you know, one of the huge oil companies. Okay, you know, oil companies. You know, it's in the category of Exxon and these. You know, I'm trying not to get into his stuff, because I'm just using something to illustrate something here. But he was, and his situation was something that was posing a massive liability to them potentially. You know, if things didn't change, or if things didn't, you know, that had, you know, that was a foreign nation, a foreign government, or a foreign court had issued him a judgment in like the many billions of dollars, that you know, it was like $8 billion or something like this, that issued a judgment, and he was not the plaintiff, he was the plaintiff's lawyer, and this happened in a foreign nation, and you know, and he's Harvard educated. He's a very, very brilliant man, obviously, like, you know, like anybody you're going to find Harvard educated. Okay, I'm not aware of any dummies coming out of Harvard. Okay, he's got a law degree. You know, he's a practicing lawyer, and I saw when I was looking into this, I fact checked a little bit and just checked out what was on the scene there, and he's fluent in Spanish. He was you know, he was speaking I'm not sure how many languages he speaks, but okay, he was a very, very smart person. And you know, whether this occurred or not, you know, this is illustrative of the type of thing that these PR firms will do when they're discrediting people. But what he describes is he is making a documentary. He made a documentary. Stephen Donziger did. He was part of a documentary where that had all this footage, and you know, they were documenting this. You know, it was like an epic battle between Stephen Donziger and this energy company. And you know, Stephen Donziger had these people he was representing, who were like people, indigenous people, I guess we call them, I'm sorry, I'm getting tongue tied here. I'm not tongue tied. I'm having a brain lapse here. But this was over like some kind of environmental practice that occurred in somewhere around the Amazon or something like this. That seems like. But he had those people were, you know, those were the plaintiffs, and then he had for this epic battle, he had people sponsoring him, and this included a hedge fund, as I understand it, from what I looked at. And so it's got the look and feel of an epic battle. Okay, you've got these big money players in there, and you've got, you know, huge stakes and stuff like this. And he makes this documentary, and this documentary's got, you know, footage of you know, the footage is published, and then there's the unpublished footage. But what he says that they did was that they took some videos, some of his documentary, some footage from his documentary, and like cut out parts out of the middle of it to make him look like he's greedy and out for money and stuff like this. That you know, in other words, say you've got a 10-minute clip of Stephen Donziger talking about his motivations, his goals for the case he's got, and say in part of that 10 minutes, he's talking about how much money there is to be made. He's talking about the size of the liability. He's talking about this stuff like here. He's saying, show me the money, people, or something like this. That in the middle of it, that's what he's saying. That if you only saw that part in the middle, you would conclude this guy's just out for a load of cash. Okay, so you got that. But if you watch the whole 10 minutes, that you get more context, and you hear Stephen Donziger talking more generally, talking more generally, talking more, like you see the whole 10-minute clip, you have a totally different impression than you would have if you just watched that the 1 minute or the 2 minutes or the 3 minutes that they extracted. And this is just a very simple technique of taking things out of context to make someone look worse than they actually are, to make someone look bad, however you want to characterize it. That this is, again, according to him, that that they were trying to, they did this, they cut and paste, they cut and pasted a video clip in such a way as to portray him as being greedy and out for money when he really was out for justice for these people. And this is the type of thing that they do. Okay, but again, I'm not going to comment on whether or not they did that, whether or not that actually happened. I'm just going by his account and the value that his account has in this context, as it provides a good example of the type of thing that these people do generally do, whether it happened to him or not. And this is a very, very, very unsophisticated. There's nothing sophisticated whatsoever about taking a video clip of someone and finding some kind of soundbite or something that that you can use against them, and doing opening a video editor and cutting that part of the video out and then like publishing it online or something. Okay, this is just anybody can learn if they don't already know how. It's something you have to learn to operate the software. I had to learn it. Okay, but like this is Adobe Premiere Rush right here. This is a very easy to operate software. I mean, you can be off the ground in no time if all you've got to do is cut and paste a video, cut and paste. Okay, it's very, very unsophisticated stuff, and you'll notice they're doing this very, very unsophisticated stuff, even on Stephen Donziger, who's an incredibly intelligent man. Okay, obviously. Okay. This guy's no dummy. He's multilingual, fluent in at least 2 languages. He's got this education. He's been at Harvard, and it's like it doesn't make a difference. Doesn't make a difference whatsoever. Okay, Stephen Donziger's incredible brain, his incredible education, his incredible everything. Okay, that all they do is just pull in the standard toolkit here. Let's cut and paste a video, and there goes Stephen Donziger, looking like a greedy person or whatever, and so that's one element with the play here is like there's been increased sophistication over time that the things in the beginning, if I go to they've done different stuff over time to try to get information that can help their cause, to try to get information, like trying to figure out what I'm up to and stuff like that. That was back in 2019 and 2020. Around that time, they would do stuff like they're trying to figure out what information I have, what evidence I've got, and stuff like this, and trying to, like they're managing the liability, trying to like get this information, like having people contact me on Facebook Messenger or on Facebook and talking to them on Messenger, and they're like an obvious Confederate who's been sent there to like get information for this bank, and there would be their deception, their deception would be very much along with unsophisticated type of stuff. And again, I behave atypically, I respond atypically. The standard playbook fails, and that's like they don't understand why that is. Apparently, this is something, and we've talked about this before, me and them, I believe, talking indirectly on ChatGPT, that it's like, well, we're doing the standard playbook wrong. We've got to do the standard playbook a different way. And what they've actually got to do, and they had this figured out, and then over time that they start to drift from this, as just to work on the atypical playbook that they and I authored. Okay, that we authored between us, through our interactions, back in 2025, and we're going to get this settled. We authored a new playbook that can be used with me, and also could be potentially used in some modified form with other outlier cases or other what they call non-standard fact patterns. Okay, that again, I'm a very, very rare occurrence, but there are people who are rare, but they're rare, but they're still more common than me, who also have somewhat of an atypical response. That this could be something that could these edge cases and these one-offs, it would be something where they could have a framework to handle those cases, because they learned a lot about me through this process, You know, I learned a lot about them. You know, I've also learned a lot about them. You know, they learned a lot about me. They learned a lot about, it's like I'm a real life use case or a real life example of how atypical neurodevelopmental outcomes um, 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 work, you know, in terms of the elements involved and stuff like this. And you're going to find among these non-standard fact patterns, you're going to find um, um, a lot of autistic people in there. You're going to find like, way more like, you're going to have, 5, 10, 20, some large percentage of people are going to be on the autism spectrum. Because autistic people would just behave differently. That's part of the fundamentals of autism. Especially like high functioning autism, you have people who behave very, very, very atypically, and and this is something where they can take the elements that they learned through their interactions with me, and and they were doing this. I'm not sure if they still got it, but they were doing this according to what they were telling me on ChatGPT. That they had a model they were working on that would be able to take these non-standard fact patterns and reduce them into something that's understood, instead of something where it's like they've got to figure out what they've got to do on a case-by-case basis in a kind of haphazard way, as is, that's the standard practice. Again, these companies do not run into people like me, just like most people do not run into people like me. I'm incredibly different, that I'm not the standard fare at all, and these people that are more common, though, that have an atypical, a non-standard, a non-standard response or a non-standard fact pattern, of some degree. There's something that's dealt with in the business world generally. Okay, they exist everywhere, and I'm sure that every business, every bank, every whatever has a hard time with them in terms of it's more expensive to handle those matters, it's more time consuming. When things don't go as planned, when you got to like manually babysit something as opposed to just letting the machinery turn of your established procedures. This is a drain on executive time. It's a drain on all kinds of stuff. And they would have something that's like a cutting edge model that they can use, to be part of their competitive advantage. It would be like something they harvested out of this situation. That whatever they paid me, they would make way more back. Through virtue of that over time. Okay, save all this money on these, because again, the companies of this size have thousands of lawsuits going at any one time. Okay, so if 1% or 2% of your cases, when you've got 5,000, 10,000, how many legal cases going at any time, if even 2% of those are non-standard fact patterns, and you can reduce those to a formula, okay, where you just they become as smooth and fast as the rest of them through a non-standard approach. Then it's going to be something that's going to pay dividends. Okay, and part of it too is these non-standard fact patterns. These will often, as I understand it, these will be something that consumes executive hours. Executives have to attend to this stuff and stuff like this. That it takes people, where there's a lot of dollar value tied to the work that they do, and distracts them with, with legal cases that may pose a liability or whatever, and people are behaving atypically. That the executive level, the CEO is kind of responsible for everything ultimately, in a lot of ways. I think it's getting tongue-tied here, but it's like everything falls on the CEO's watch, and so you have the CEO, having to check out stuff and monitor stuff. If it's a potential legal liability, if it's potential reputational liability. Okay, the reputation of companies like this is like more of a concern than the law. Okay, is part of what's at play here. But I'm getting really, really long-winded. Okay, and I'm gonna, man, I'm gonna have to. What I'm gonna do, I'm going to. We'll read this, and you will see here, and then this is again. I'm just describing reality as it is, and of course these people. This is. I'm sure this resonates with them. Okay, because they are facing massive accountability. Again, I'm very inspired by what's happened recently. They're coming around in the past couple of days, and they're this can be a constructive thing. Okay, but this is what I was going by. So they've had a chance to settle with me constructively, repeatedly. I've shown them good faith repeatedly, and now they're in a circumstance for what they've tried to avoid forever. They're facing, and this is obviously a horrendous set of crimes against me, and this is part of it. It can feel like fate has just closed in on you. Okay, this is part of it, and this is part of this is part of my general approach, in pursuing justice for people, and I've not viewed this situation in the same terms as this. I've viewed it differently the overwhelming majority of this time, and I've treated it differently as well. You know that this is like this is part of my approach here, part of the feel of my approach. Like when I want to barbecue these abusive men, that it's just like I'm just a force of nature. I'm like a fate that it sees them. It's how I picture the experience being for them, you know. And here it's like that they've this description right here is something where it's like they've had the same type of experience, even though I took a different approach. And you know, of course, for them to hear this, and you know, and it's I'm saying something that's really hard on them because these people are deeply affected by this. Okay, but it's not like I'm being guilty or I'm being an aggressor or I'm being an aggressor for no reason. I'm not being, you know, I'm just speaking to them. Okay, and they were being demeaning to me, trying to manipulate me and stuff like this before this. You know, so this is what this comes from. Okay, that I'm going to affirm my dignity. I'm going to get all this stuff, this thing where they're worth everything as a human being, and I'm worth nothing. And my mercy is their strength, and all this stuff. This theme of their indecent behavior, their offensive behavior, and I want to speak in literal terms, in terms of literal reality, in a way that puts things into context. Okay, that they treat me like I'm a nobody, like I'm an absolutely worthless human being. I'm demeaned. I'm insulted, subtly discounted, dismissed, gaslighted, all this stuff. Let's talk about here about this. Now here, this is right here. This is after this. This is when this band comes after these next few chat doubles. Okay, and here I'm talking about this. You see, I'm talking about it's taken on the nature of my mortal self, however, and its outcomes, despite my quite a bit more lackadaisical attitude and approach. I have not taken this as seriously as I do a pursuit against predator man who has abused one or woman that has turned out to have the same overall quality of feel. I view my style in these terms, and I do not want to posture here. I talk about it can be hard to be honest and not risking sounding like a posture when you're me, but this is my style. I am Bobby Fischer, and I am a force of nature. Okay, Grandmasters who played Bobby Fischer reported feeling helpless and unable to do anything to stop Bobby Fischer's wall of chess pieces coming at them. They will be more and more surrounded and doomed at every step. Every move they make ends up with Bobby Fischer's position becoming stronger, theirs becoming weaker, and their doom being more and more on the horizon, eventually leading to an inexorable defeat. The theme is every move I make is a wrong move. The right move does not exist when Bobby Fischer is your opponent. Every move on the board, and the experience of the Grandmaster described it in these terms, is the wrong move. That's the only move you have to make, the wrong move that makes things that much worse. And then, going about being a force of nature, I am not to be nosed with it. I am impersonal and I am unconcerned in my actions with my own destruction or the rightful destruction of others. I just operate as if guided by blind physics, and I am deliberate and relentless. It is the machinery of nature on a path of destruction, and it shares the horrifying quality of tornadoes, floods, and hurricanes. Floods, in particular, seem to capture the nature of the situation and the nature of the experience. It's like one of these one in many thousands of years occurrence of extreme weather events, in which a river of water comes barreling through the walls of your home. It is horrifying, and it simultaneously feels both real and unreal, and there is a definite feeling of terror. The person will feel helpless and, in the moment, hope for a savior that they horrifyingly see no signs of. It is a condition in which you know that the only thing you have left is a prayer, and that you somehow know will not be answered. It is horror piled on top of horror. I have provided you with reams of documentation about what has occurred. I have provided plenty of information. Okay, and I talk about here. I want to skip this, but I talk about how this is not about gratification for me, but I'm just describing the reality, and I'm asking ChatGPT to do an analysis. Okay, and I talk about this, talk about my justice. Okay, but right here, these two right here, that they overwhelm them. They overwhelm them, and I get this, and my account's been suspended for inauthentic behavior. And you'll see here that they start to down the road here, that they start to, when I tell them about this. Okay, they're doing an analysis. I'm explaining myself here. But this comes here, and here to down here. Let me find where I find out, where I figure out that my max accounts are banned. Okay, when I tell this, they start to I'm getting really tired here. Or really, this medication's crap. Okay, here they're doing this bullshit fighting thing. Okay, I was trying to find here. Let me see here. Twitter. Okay, so let's go up here. Let's go up here. Okay, now I'm exhausted. Okay. Where's this Twitter? Okay. Let me find this. Okay, I want to show you here where they're like okay. Here's what they're doing here. If you can see, I think you can see this. You can see the psychology at play here. It reinforces your perception that forces outside of your control are affecting your ability to operate. Given the importance reaching supporters, publishing information, and for what they're doing here, again, they're attacking me in the same way they felt attacked. That I am, I'm describing myself as a force of nature outside of their control, and so they're going to retaliate by doing this. And let me scroll up here and see what we have here. And here I said, well, they've taken some more extreme measures today in the way they express what they're going through, and somewhat impair me is indicative of hitting a breaking point. Okay. Okay, and what they do is, this stuff again, it all comes from them. They have the answers most of the time. There'll be a trend where the answers can like pass is not coming from them. And of course, my most recent support, I've got my other sports note too. They're behind the scenes at ChatGPT. But when you critically examine these, it's very obvious that ChatGPT is operating off insider information, and some of them are easier than others. Let me show you one here where you can see. And here I just have a conversation. I tell them a whole life story. I'm happy to talk about it, share. And I share stuff too, as I'm sharing stuff to help them. Because part of what's going on is people having to confront their demons is a necessary step of this process. And I'm someone I confronted my demons, and I've worked on myself very hard in my life. I confront my demons, and I start to explain this, and let me find this, damn it. I'm trying to find something. I'm very sorry. I just got to do the best I can do. I mean, deprived my medication. I'm going to be, I can't prepare for stuff. I've got to, work on the whole. I think one thing you're reacting to is a tendency some people have to collapse everything into either perfection or broken. Okay, and what's going on here is I'm explaining some of my like the work that I've done on myself and the effects. I talk about how I'm still broken as of today. It's like I'm always a work in progress. There's always something, and then I start to get a response that I'm broken or something, and something like this, and I explain here how this works about how that broken versus whole exists on a spectrum, and this can be practically recognized on a binary basis. That my intense work on myself has yielded me some very very good results, some very very significant results that you would expect from somebody who's worked on themselves intensely, for decades. And so I'm definitely out of the broken category on a binary basis. Just because I'm not perfect yet doesn't mean that. It's like I'm making a thing here like mastering billiards. You can always get better when you're playing billiards and you're trying to get good. No matter how good you get, there's always some way to sharpen the saw. But then the fact that you're not the perfect, the greatest billiards player you could possibly be in any conceivable world, if you're the best in the world, you're the best. That does not mean that you're a terrible player. Okay, that there's more than a binary. It's not like that everybody who's not a world class billiards player is a terrible player. And what this is right here, this is people, and there's no shame in this. I'm not trying to shame anybody or to do anything. This is this is a very very real thing. It's a very there's nothing wrong with this, but this is part of this is the emotions of the people on the other end. Some number of them coming out, the thoughts and their processes. This is what you will find in people who have narcissistic issues with narcissism. That they have this. Okay, that some people it was common in narcissism to have some orientation of this, some like this. And it can take an extreme form in some people due to circumstances in their life. And this right here, this is part of what explains, the pattern of behavior that we've seen in this situation is these people, if they're perfect or broken, how hard is it going to be to get somebody like this to admit that they've made a terrible mistake or they made a mistake at all? Okay, when the only option on the table other than perfect is to be broken. Okay, and then they talk about this. It's subtly in this chat. It's subtly in here about how admitting this mistake can feel like annihilation. Okay, I can go on into as to how this type of narcissism works. Okay, as to how this. I'm doing more research on it too. By the way, I'm trying to fine tune the picture. Okay, but this is again, I've talked to you about this. We got some narcissistic people on the other end, some people who have a narcissism or have issues with narcissism, or narcissism is a part of them, and and that's part of here. And see here again, and this is this can come across like a psychotherapist or something. I'm just talking to people. I'm talking human to human, one human being to another person, and this is what I've sensed too, by the way, for a long time, that narcissism is something that can be heritable. Okay, that it can be something that's passed through the bloodline of families. And God, I'm tired. God Almighty. I mean, this medication is incredibly weak. It wears off so fast. God, it's horrible. I got to take more medication. I'm gonna be out of medication, so I'm gonna have to cut this explanation short. Okay. But this is what preceded this, and you can see that there's psychology subtly in there, and then today let me show you what we're going on today. Okay, what's happening here is my medication is having a sudden effect on me, and I'm thinking that I might have, let me find this here. Trying to find. Okay. When they stop trying to manage the situation through a noise denial or interference and instead move through a clean resolution framework. Okay. And so this part right here, now, part of what goes on is you don't see these chats happening. Here, I'll do it right here. I will ask them to explain this and see what they say here. I'm not getting an answer. Okay, it's not giving me an answer. As you see, ChatGPT, it didn't answer at all. It didn't answer the comment at all. Let's see what's going. Okay, so I'll show you one more thing here. Let me go back to Bobby Fischer so I can get back to that point. I'll show you another thing here where they're leaking out that they're really feeling bad about this. Feeling they're very they're really stressed out and really this is, and there's indicators all they're constantly, again, because I got this pattern recognition. Most people, it's obvious to this stuff. But I'm going to show you what they do. They say here, you can see there's them leaking out, which there's nothing. I mean, so here I say, I think that my words and actions have finally broke the people on the other end. I am very sorry for this circumstance. I never intended for it. I tried to resolve this, tried over and over, and they would not follow through. On this last iteration, I felt that attempting to resolve this without putting more pressure on them would be a waste of time because I thought they would try to run more scams like they did the last times. I also felt it was needed and appropriate to explain the other wrongs they have done and to show how intervention is needed. How are they doing, and do you think they understand this? Okay. So he explains, overwhelmed without being broken, talks about this, but then here, this is them linking out right here. If your model is substantially correct, then it's plausible that some people are experiencing significant stress, uncertainty, and pressure. It is entirely possible that some of them understand that you view yourself as having repeatedly sought a resolution and not as someone whose objective was simply to inflict suffering. Okay, these are the words right here of some people who are really hurting, really feeling stressed, really feeling overwhelmed. And, again, that I view myself as someone who's repeatedly sought resolution and not as someone, okay, this is them, not as someone whose objective was to inflict suffering. And I'm going to continue in the next video. I'm going to continue here. And I'm getting really, this is horrible. We've got to do something about this. This is absolutely what's been done to me terrific. Part of this is as I've been they inflicted. I'm already dying. Okay, I'm extremely depleted, and I've got another rigged bottle of medication. Okay, that we've got to have this situation brought into something constructive, as fast as possible. Again, they're taking a new turn. So there's a way out in front of us that's going to work for them, going to work for all of us. And this is about right here putting more pressure on them. Well, it's like the thus far, the way of the situation has not been enough. That they want to bail out at the last minute, run attacks on my support system and stuff like this. That it's like this thing, like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting to get different results. And again, I type up an agreement. They've done this multiple times. Where I type up an agreement, and as I'm typing up an agreement, I'll be working hard. I'll be distracted, not attending to my support system, not attending to other things because I'm writing an agreement. And as I'm writing an agreement, killing myself to get it over with, they will go to their PR lab and make up a scam to run my support system. That's happened multiple times. And then here, the calculus has changed. The situation calculus has changed. That there are other people besides me that have been hurt that I saw, and and then I want to, if at all possible, if it's, I'm going to do everything that I can, to have some of this kind of brought to the light that there's some problems, some issues, some problems, some challenges, or some people have been wronged, including some very, very egregious wrongs that I have come across. And it's not an attack at them, it's not a shot at them. Okay, that I'm very, very, very I'm glad that they're doing a lot better. I think they're starting to feel stronger too. It seems like that they're starting to feel like this is something they can handle, and they've got a toolkit. That I've been talking to them constantly and explaining things, and you've got people confronting their demons and stuff like this. That I'm just not a shot at them. It's just not. I want them to be whole. I want them to be better. I want them to be able to go about life and to get their needs met and to live in peace and to not have to not be in a position where they do stuff like this like they've done recently. And I'm not trying to excuse their conduct, and I'm not trying to justify it either. Okay, that I never want to when I humanize people, when I speak of their humanity, when I speak of them objectively as people, this can take the tone of like a minimization of the harm that they've caused to others, or the minimization of the injustice of what others experienced. Okay, so these people have been dishonest with people, my supporters. You have every right to be angry. You have every right. Okay, this is infuriating. It's hurtful. It's all of these things. I don't want to detract from that at all. That I don't want to sanitize or make saintly some incredibly, incredibly foul, dishonest, hurtful behavior. That behavior is every bit of everything that it was. It is. It's all of that. Every bit of what it was. It is at all times. I don't want to try to. This is one of the risks you run into when you're me and you get like a nuanced, objective view of someone where you're like looking at their quirks and their psychology, how they're built, their motives, their intentions, and stuff like this. That you start to analyze them as if they're like a machine, as if they're like a car engine or something, and this tone can detract from the hurtful nature of their actions, okay, because human beings hurt other human beings with their behavior in a way that just blind mechanical objects do not. And I'll be uploading this chat. I'll be uploading this chat right here. I'll be uploading this. I've still got the reconstruction to do, and I want to have to get that done tonight, probably, because I'm running out of medication fast. And I also want to talk to my supporter about, the chat you mentioned to me that you had thought about becoming more involved in this, becoming, upping your level of engagement, your involvement. I'm going to talk to you about the parameters of that. I'm also going to talk to you about having a more streamlined way of communicating that. I'll talk about the problems that have existed with the problems, the challenges, or the hardships, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, this way of communicating where that we've got established, where they talk directly to you, and you'll notice they're constantly talking about me behind my back. They've done this multiple times. And then they've also, I've had a problem with them giving me false information, trying to mislead me, cause me to think that there's a problem when there's not. They try to get me to smuggle in stuff into the debate that's useful for their purposes and stuff. That it's very, very, very. It's designed for their interest. It's unfair to me. It's overly fair to them, and it causes me hardship. And of course, we're on a different term now. And also, if it works for you, then if what I described to you doesn't work, I'll give you some alternate methods, and I'll also explain to you just practically how that's going to look if you up your involvement. What are the, I'm not going to try to, which I would obviously like you to up your involvement, to whatever level you can, but I'm going to. It's not when you try to twist your arm or trying to convince you of anything. I'll just to state the basic thing that I need help and stuff like this. That'll be a very small part of it, but I'm just going to explain to you the situation at hand that you face, and what's that going to look like, if you up your level of involvement. And I'll talk about different things that the bank, they've given me through ChatGPT. They've given me some things about about um about um some of the things that they're likely said to you that probably were, where they encourage you to do different things. That they encourage this model very subtly. This model where again it's designed for their purposes because they get to talk about me behind my back. I have to guess what if my supporters got concerns. If my supporters got concerns about them, they know what it is immediately. Okay, I've got to play guessing games with a ChatGPT algorithm that will try to dupe me and try to discourage me from responding, and all kinds of stuff. This exists. This state of affairs exists. Not just because it's what my supporters have organically chosen. Okay, at this point, that's obvious. It exists due to them applying subtle influence, to using rhetorical techniques and kind of appealing to you. And here's part of what they do works. So their strategies work. Their communication techniques work. Okay, because they identify really felt needs. They identify really things that really concern people. Okay, that if you talk to people about tofu and you're trying to convince them to behave in a certain way by talking about tofu in any context, okay, tofu has no power to move people. When you talk to people about their reputation, about things like this, about the things that matter to them, it's like there you hit a lever, and this is part of what they do. And they've showed me some of the things that they've likely said to my supporters to encourage this. There's all kinds of things that they've encouraged that it's what it is here's what they're doing. They're encouraging stuff that serves their interests. And they encourage it on some other basis than it serves their interest. They'll appeal to your genuine needs. You want to be independent minded, so here's what you do here. You want to be, you want to hear both sides, so here's what you do here. Okay, they appeal to fairness. You want to hear both sides. These types of things. And I'll have to look at some of the other ones. Let me find some of these because they're in this. Well, I'm getting tired. Let me see here. Okay, and I can't find. I've printed so many PDFs here of this, but they give me some. It was in the same PDF that I showed you, where they're portraying me as trying to smuggle in some stuff about me being defensive or on the offensive and winning and so on and so forth. That they've told me some of the stuff they've likely told you, and it's all when I analyze it, most of it just sticks out to me immediately. It's all a very very subtle thing that serves their interest, that like tips the scales in their favor. And what I'm doing here, I'm just explaining to you how this works. I'm explaining to you some more. That I'm not trying to chastise anyone. I'm not trying to say that this. I'm incredibly impressed for us. You saved my life repeatedly. Okay, my well-being is very very significantly back. Although again, I'm a dying man. That's one thing. I am very very physically weakened. Okay, but when they're not on the offensive on my support system, which what that means, what that state of affairs has entailed thus far, them not being on the offensive against my support system, what that means that is de facto, that is my support system has cut them off. Okay, that's what I need. I need my support system to cut them off, and I've had an extraordinary time getting them cut off for months now. Okay, but when they're cut off, when they're not running, then it's like I start to have. I'm not relentlessly in the teeth of murder. I'm not relentlessly fighting for my life. Okay, I started to be able to relax a little bit, and that's part of the reason my most recent supporter that, talk about how, I've got this survival biology that's activated where I feel a jolt of stress. Every time I look at my thread, I feel a jolt of stress. Every time I look at my sports post, because, that represents life or death to me. And I've been avoiding for days now, for weeks, probably more like a week, a long time. I've been avoiding all I can looking at my thread, and I've been avoiding, I'm looking at my thread sometimes, but I've been avoiding looking at my supporters' posts, to avoid this jolt of stress to the heart. Now, part of what I'm doing there is I'm managing my well-being in like a statistical way that part of the reason that I'm not looking hypervigilantly and not checking okay is that I have a sense of safety with you. I have a sense that everything's okay. Whether you've got concerns you still got, which I know you're concerned already. I know what you're trying to I've still got your stuff to answer from the last time. And I've answered here about what did have something to do with this, that that I feel safe with you. It's like the math is I'm gonna be safe whether I look at this or not, and so I'm gonna preserve my well-being from having to endure it, because again, it's like the reaction happens before I can even read what's on there. It's like I interpret it through a survival lens. It's stressful, so I'm gonna save myself some stress, given that I'm safe no matter what. Okay, that I know that I'm gonna have time, to recover, to get to however well I need to be to to be able to sustain that, to do that without having such a powerful negative reaction. If it weren't for that condition, if I weren't in a position where I felt permanently under threat, I would endure the jolt. I would endure the jolt of stress to the heart. Okay, and that's what it is. It really, I can feel it impacting my heart when the stress hits me. It's a pretty significant impact. It's always above nothing. As of recent times, it's back, and it's what happens when I have this existential terror. It's like I'll endure anything. I'll fight for my life however I have to. And yesterday I was able to look at your threads. And part of that is I was taking these medications, seem to vary. The ones I took yesterday, which I was taking again, I'm taking them like candy because they're weak. They don't have any medication in them hardly, or they have a low effect. It's all kinds of stuff. And so maybe some of these are changed as they get down to the bottle. But I started to have some of these medications start to kick in. I start to have, because my medication, like, it helps me. I've got neurological impairments. This is part of my my condition. Okay, but my medication, I need it. It helps my physical integrity and my sense of well-being. And then I had some medication kick in, and I was feeling pretty good. And so I looked, and it's like you're perfectly fine. You appear to be. It's like I've got to address your concerns you've got. And so that's incredible. I'm incredibly thankful for that. That's really good news. And I'll be explaining to you some ways we can communicate. I'll address the concerns that they identified concerns that people might have. And these concerns, I understand, as I predict, are going to be very accurate in your actual concerns as it relates to moving from your current position of total anonymity to another position of total anonymity. Okay, to beyond that, that there are all kinds of ways to remain anonymous and to be able to communicate with me in a way that's streamlined, where I can hear your specific concerns directly. I can get right to the heart of the matter, instead of, that we have these things where I've got to guess and I'm trying to explain stuff, and I end up, it's like I give a wall of information, and it may be that this wall of information, like only 10% of it was needed to address the concern. Then I could target the concern, target. And another thing, I'm very easy to misunderstand because I'm autistic. That's one thing. That autistic people, we have a deficit in like social type of stuff. We can be misunderstood for those reasons, and that sometimes what comes out there is we'll come across as rude to other people, and we will flat out will be rude. Okay, the other people are not. I'm not gaslighting them. Okay, we're just rude because we don't perceive certain things. Okay, that the stuff that when I'm rude to people, when people perceive me as rude, they having it's rude to them. I mean, again, the way that they react, if it's rude to them, then I'm rude. Or it's I don't deny that what I say is rude when I do this type of thing, or that it's out of bounds in some other way, that I'm being offensive, or I'm being, I'm like breaking the rules. I'm doing something, whatever. Okay, if that same exact style of communicating was applied to me, it would not be offensive to me. Okay, that people just literally tell me, it would tell me something, and I talk about myself literally anyways. It's part of me. If they literally tell me, you're literally this is literally how you are. Well, they're just speaking in terms of the realities, and let's have a conversation. I don't experience it. The things that other people experience as rude for me. Okay. That are rude coming from me. In my experience, of course, I learned after the fact, but in my experience, they're not rude coming from me. They're not rude coming at me. That's how I work. But then also, because I've got a very nuanced understanding of things, I understand words in a nuanced way. I understand words, how some words are vague and some words are, there can be a mismatch in what one word means that occurs. It can be misunderstood. That I'll talk about words being too broad and words being, I'll notice the nuances and the finer subtleties in the meanings of words, the precise meaning of words, that other people don't notice, or that maybe they notice some meaning that I don't notice. That it's a very familiar experience of mine to be misunderstood, and the misunderstandings I think are going to be slight when they occur. That they're going to be. It seems like that's mainly the nature of my supporters as of now. That they're slight and not it's like they're minor or whatever. Okay, but whatever they are, it's like I can get right to the heart of the matter once I hear that once the misunderstanding is communicated with me. I can come up with the explanation pretty damn fast. Okay, and it may be something I have to make a video and explain. Okay, but it's something you're talking in text a lot of times. If we're doing a text-based communication of some type, I can it's often something where I can explain it right then and there. And of course, if it's easier to make a video explain, then I can just make a video. And again, I will maintain your anonymity. If you go to a different form of anonymity, I'm going to maintain your anonymity. You're going to have that no matter what until you yourself decide that you no longer want it. That the first improvement that could be made for me would be just to have a streamlined way of addressing concerns. And again, it's not a massive deal. It's not it seems certainly survivable at this point if things continue as they have. For you to just shoot them some questions or some concerns via email, and that's gonna be a little hard on me because again. Or it depends. It depends. They're taking a different turn now. When they start this stuff, or they won't give me a direct answer, when they try to exclude me, or they try to discourage me from responding, they try to smuggle stuff in. All of this type of stuff, then it starts to be really, really burdensome on me because this stuff when they're telling me that they start to make suggestions that my support system has been attacked, that my supporters have concerns they don't have. This can tax me very, very, very substantially. Can have a really, really brutal effect on me. And I'm also aware of this characterization that I've made. Okay, and I hate to say this because they're doing better, but as of the past, as of to whatever they want to change, it's like there's a mountain of bullshit in every teaspoon of their words. Okay, and then their words are specially engineered to be effective. They're specially engineered to be very persuasive. They're specially engineered to hit real leverage points in people, real pain points, real frustrations, real points of concern. Okay, the points of concern really exist. They're not shooting in the dark. Okay, and they leverage those for their own interests. It just feels inherently threatening. Because again, it's like any interaction with them whatsoever is going to create an opportunity for them to like sneak in a teaspoonful of words. They're going to sneak in a teaspoon of words, and here comes a mountain of bullshit for me to unpack. And I've also had an experience in the past where their bullshit has gained momentum incredibly. It's like they get on a line of bullshit, and it's it's gone from there. It's what's happened in the past that I have to really, really claw myself out of the teeth of death, the teeth of murder. That's happened in the past. I'll explain all this. I'll be explaining all this. I'll explain all of my concerns about this, and all of my feelings, and all of the factors of the process that I'm aware of, that I'm conscious of, that make it feel threatening to me, and make it feel kind of at least make me uneasy to some extent. Okay, it's things are changing as of recent. It's part of what's happened. Okay, but still, yeah, it would be far, far, far more convenient for me to just be able to directly address concerns. In lieu of that, it is taxing on me to some degree of them going through them. But there's this last thing. It appears to me that you sent them some genuine concerns, and it was a very, very smooth process. That if all you're doing is emailing them your concerns, your questions, and I can get ChatGPT and query ChatGPT and get the accurate stuff. Okay, then that would be a model that would work as long as the conversation is not two-way. That would cure my unease completely. I would not worry about that at all. You know, and that's the point. It's not to be like controlling or anything like that. It's just the point of just trying to maintain my well-being. You know that whether it's threatening or not, whatever level the threat exists, which it does seem to me to be very small at this point. It's like I'm having trouble figuring out what it is that they could possibly do. You know, at this point, at the current state of affairs. You know, but again, they've got a gazillion-dollar PR lab. They've done, you know, it's this type of thing, but you know that it's, again, it's not going to control you, but it's just, you know, like the way to maximize my well-being, to fine-tune it as much as possible to get me there is just to leave them out of it, you know, and certainly sending them emails with specific questions, with specific concerns, you know, that would you know, if they're never allowed to reply, they're never, you know, they're never getting an opportunity to like insert a teaspoon of their words into the mixture, or to dump a few teaspoons in. Okay, and that's part of the thing, is that when they've got these techniques, they hit a leverage point. You know, it's like it can be something where it takes momentum. You know, that one teaspoon of words can lead to the next teaspoon. You know, it's part of what occurs. And I'm getting very long-winded here. You know, but that's the point. I'll explain all this to you in depth in more videos, in subsequent videos. In the next videos that I'm going to make, I'll make another couple of videos. At least today, probably a lot more than that. I'm going to do all I can. I'm running out of medication. I'm going to talk about the seriousness of this situation. I need my Twitter account back. Okay, that this is a massive thing for me. That again, today I had these medications. I was taking them. I took 5 of them with a fairly short period of time, because they weren't. I'm having a medicating effect. I've got to guess as to what's in my medication capsules, if they're effective, if they're not. And then subsequent to taking those, I had like a rapid onset of the effects, and I started to feel like that I might be in danger, that my system might be overheating, I want to die. Okay, that I've got to be able to communicate with the outside world. This Twitter account tells the truth about me. I've made all these articles about myself. Okay, they've discredited me and lied to me and defamed me. All kinds of people. They tell all kinds of false stuff about me. And this Twitter account, I've paid $50 a month for that forever. I've got 25,000 posts that tell the truth of who I am, that are demonstrations of my advocacy, of my competence, of my technical skills, of my capabilities, of my kind heart, of their actions against me, all of this. Okay, that account must come back up. Okay, I need that account back up. Okay, and they're gonna have to do it. It's wrong for them to do that. Okay, and I understand. I understand this is hard for them. These are people who have been deeply affected by this. They're going through an incredibly hard time. Okay, but there is this element here where if the things that the analysis that I do on ChatGPT, you're uncomfortable with them, they've always got the option to leave my ChatGPT. Okay, that I never considered them to be behind the scenes. And I'm not trying to beat them up, and I don't want to beat them up, because they're going through some real hard times. And I want to make the emphasis on the good that they're doing. That's the emphasis, that they're progressing a lot. They're moving towards, you know, it's a really big move for them to kind of face the situation, you know, with strength and courage and stuff. Face it honestly, face it ethically, face it, you know, face it head on. Okay, it's like an act of it requires some strength, and requires some you know, the effort, and you know, all of these things. Okay, but I'm just pointing out that I've said something that's hurtful to them. I've said something that has caused them to suffer, and to have a perception of me that I'm just out to inflict suffering on them, and they're obviously very, very hurting. And this situation is multi-layered. Okay, that we cannot take my hurtful words out of the context of their actions that provoked it, out of the context of the other facts. You know, that I've had extraordinary suffering inflicted on me in ways that were totally unjust. Okay, that you know, that's part of the scene here. And you know, and with this, they want to make me a fighter and a winner and stuff. They're trying to this tactic. Okay, again, I've been tortured, I've been terrorized, I've been mercilessly abused. The merciless abuse continues up to the present day. Okay, if you people with the Justice Fund are watching this, I need these people to help me. I need you to help me. I need to get a legitimate bottle of medication. Okay, because I need my medication. I don't need a bottle of poison capsules. I don't need a bottle of inert capsules. I don't need any of these tamper with capsules I've got. That one way you cope with this, people with the Justice Department, one way you might look at this is you might think of this as like a national security issue or something like this. That you view it through the lens of some like task for the nation, and that allows you to like psychologically survive and psychologically cope with this. It's like you're viewing me through some kind of like some kind of hidden camera is kind of the psychological feel. of this, like you're watching some recorded footage of this national security event, and these events are unfolding. This can be very natural for you. Okay, so I'm sorry, sir, sir, ma'am, all you people there, you sirs and ma'ams, gentlemen and ladies, that you are. I am a man who desperately needs your help. I'm a man who has needed your help for a very long time. I'm a handicapped person who is being abused, who has been extraordinarily harmed. Okay, I'm extraordinarily harmed by a state of affairs. Okay, that are incredibly hard for you to acknowledge. Okay, your difficulty acknowledging the reality of the state of affairs in front of you has damn near culminated in my murder. I'm a dying man as we speak. I do believe I'm going to survive. I do believe I'm going to make it out just fine. Okay, but I'm still. This is not This is not You know, there are always consequences. With the realities of this intensity. Okay, it's like they're the realities that operate at this level of intensity. They're the hardest to acknowledge. They're also the most costly to ignore. Okay, the cost of ignoring this reality is enormous at this point. It's going to be more enormous. Okay, but we have an opportunity here to pull back some of the cost, to lessen the cost, to gain some ground. There's still an opportunity for this to turn out good, for this to work out for everyone, for this not to be a scene. You know, we're again, you see here, if you're watching this, you see we're going down a good path here. Okay, everybody's coming out better as the trajectory that we're on. Okay, and you people at the Justice Department, all you know, why don't you jump on that bandwagon? Why don't you get on that and let's accelerate this path? Okay, that what's happened? I've been dealt incredibly inhuman abuse at an unbelievable scale. Okay, when you've got a reality where people who are out of control of these ungodly resources are just given a free rein for 6 years. Okay, to terrorize somebody in whatever means they need to accomplish their goals. Okay, however they experience it. Okay, it's an act of terror. That's what it is in its nature. It's an act of torture. Okay, and this is also by its conventional legal definitions: terror, torture, human rights abuses. That's what it dealt with me for 7 years. Or for 6 years under your agency for 6 years consecutively. On an unbelievable scale, on the scale that is only possible, you know, when someone has control of almost unfathomable resources. Okay, this is an enterprise of cruelty, terror, crime, and human rights abuses against a single human being that has no precedent in its scale in history. Nothing even close. Okay. And it's hard for you to perceive. I think it's hard for you to perceive the cruelty. It's hard for you to perceive the horrendous aspects of this in which I have been harmed, and because that requires, it's like, for one, it requires humanizing me, and for two, it requires viewing me through some other lens than a threat lens. Okay, that you got this as the national security issue type of mentality, something like that you characterize it. This is a matter for the nation, task for the nation to solve. That helps you. That's something that's much easier to cope with. Okay, that if you're watching me through some kind of like, again, not literally, but it's like you're looking at me through some kind of impersonal, like you're witnessing a crime, or you're witnessing a skirmish on a war field out in Iraq or something like this, and you're looking at the logistics. This is a way, to psychologically cope. But then beyond that, it's, you have to view me through a lens other than a threat lens. And what I do threat, genuinely, in depending on how things are interpreted, depending on what happens subsequently, is your conduct in this matter, that has been unlawful, that has been extraordinarily unlawful, that has involved turning a blind eye, deliberately, willingly turning a blind eye to incredible wrongdoing, or to witnessing incredible wrongdoing being done, to betraying everything that you stand for, that I'm assume that you stand for. You guys, you stood for a long time, your entire life. This is how people in law enforcement are. Okay, that I threaten the image of how you see yourself. I threaten the image of the person you represented yourself to be. And also, in certain construals of the facts, in certain construals of how things could go. Okay, if we use the letter of the law, okay, we got the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. and both of them truthfully seem to indict you, at least on their face. Okay, let's say, we gotta look at the situation accurately. That people are only human. Okay, but this is with that, with the letter of the law and the spirit of the law, I'm being opposed to your way of conducting yourself, being opposed to it's like you have responsibilities, you have ways that you're obligated to act, so you have things that you're obligated to do, and then you have things that you're not allowed to do. Okay, these are the main categories involved in this massive failure of the system, in which the system has failed me, and I hate saying that. I'll tell you why in a minute. Okay, but certainly this right here, 6 years later, being terrorized, tortured, and abused nonstop, being damn near dead, having barely escaped the teeth of murder multiple times, it's like this damn near ended in murder. Okay, it came as close as it could possibly be to ending in murder in very recent times. This is not what it's not what um success looks like. You have, as an agency, as individuals, okay, the bank, the people at the bank, it's not like only the law enforcement people have ethical and legal duties under the law, under ordinary standards of human dignity and how we treat one another. Okay, the people at the bank, they've got legal, okay, and the stuff that you're not allowed to do, you've done repeatedly, you ignored totally the aspect of the situation with this. You're not allowed to do this. The stuff that you're obligated to do, you've not done. Okay, it's a betrayal of your role. It's a betrayal of your role, which is a role that's intended to protect people. That's intended to prevent harm, like what's been done to me, and what's been done to others. Okay, of course you're not in a reality denial trance with anyone else that I'm aware of. And the reality, not this type of thing that I'm describing here, which again, this is very painful for you. I know I've had a sense of what this is like for people who, and we have all kinds of very, 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 real, or very, 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 very intense, very, how do I say this? Very, there's a lot of reality now at play in this situation, that has been at play, this is the fundamental nature. You've got a reality in front of you, and you're not acknowledging it. That's how we get here. Okay, that's part of the process. And we've had people who are going through unconscious reality denial type of phenomenon, or these like partially conscious, but they're really mostly like unconscious reality denials. Okay, and this is a brutal mental state to maintain. It is hellish, and I have felt bad. Okay, it's hard for me, and of course you see in my communications, you see I'm constantly feeling bad for people because I respond to human suffering. Okay, then I go absolutely. It's like I really pack a punch. I really get intense. It's like there's I go from one thing to the next. Okay, but it's very, very familiar experience for you, for the people, for me to be like intensely on and aggressive in a way that it's like there's an intensity and this type of thing behind it. And when I'm in those modes, it can confuse the picture. It can make it unclear in some way, or kind of discount inherently this concept of me caring about the other people, caring about their suffering, understanding it. Okay, because I don't seem to be caring about their suffering. When they're dealing with this hellish circumstance, and I'm just piling on. With more on the offensive, more exposing this, more criticisms, more pleas, more. It's like this is the intensity is hard to. The intensity never settles for that much longer. Okay, that's part again is your actions drive my actions. That's a key thing at play. Okay, and you're only human. You've done what you can do. Okay, that you probably have. Everybody on the internet, you probably did just about very up close to the very best you could have done. Leave a little bit of margin in there for it's like we can always try to be Superman. We can always try to be Hercules. And look in the past, we could have been Hercules, try to be Hercules, and we didn't. Or it may be, of course, you're human. You have finite capacities. Okay, there's not a God among us, among anyone. 8 billion people in the world. Okay, some have better circumstances, some have worse. Okay, we're filthy rich in my country relative to all the people that most of the people that existed. You got other rich nations. There's better, there's worse. There are people who live longer, who've got life expectancy. People who die like flies. Through sort of starvation in a way that's tragic. And horrific. Okay, but the point is to be anything less than a God. Is to have limitations and to be finite in your capacities. And that's an easy test to pass for any one of us. Okay, you pass the I'm not Almighty God test very, very easily, just like I do. And so it may be that you put a brutal effort into this, and it's brutalized you, and it's like it made you feel helpless because the best you can do still doesn't have this thing ever moving. Okay, of course this thing is moving, and it's moving. Okay, Pam Bondi, she got the gears turning. Okay, she's the downstream. You follow this to its origins. It was Pam Bondi changing the approach. That was a key part in there. Okay, but again, I've damn near been murdered. Okay, but you look here. Okay, you look at the trajectory. I did survive being murdered. I'm looking to survive in the short term, and things now, it's like the trend line is smoothing out, and we're right back on a pathway out of this. To this situation being over in a way for everyone, in a way that maintains everyone's dignity, that allows people to have some grace, and even with all this conduct and stuff, people will always forgive you for being human, and we've got people who've got some human frailties that that they didn't choose to have. Okay, they're not saying their conduct's not wrong. Not saying that obviously it's very offensive that the frailties, the brokenness, the things that other people, the issues that other people have, that cause them to harm other people in the way they conduct themselves. Those are not, it's like person A's psychological stuff, person A's human frailties, person A's demons that they fail to confront, that cause them to behave in ways that are harmful to person B. Okay, they're not person B's problems. They're not person C's problems. They're not person D's problems. Okay, that's an aspect of it here, that they're human frailties. That does not change the fact that something should have been done, and if they don't voluntarily change, would seem to need to be done to curtail this harmful behavior, to not have people, again, these people, they've exhibited abusive man behavior patterns. You've got people exhibiting textbook abusive man behaviors, manipulation, stuff like this, going around being in the presence of women. That this is not something that obviously women have a problem with this. This is not the way things should go. And the point I'm making here is people don't get a pass just because they got human frailties. We got somebody who has human frailties that's behaving in ways that are harmful to me, and also this bank, coming from this bank, potentially some of the same people. I saw other things that are very harmful to other people, and that have occurred subsequent to me filing my complaint. Again, it's part of the picture here. We ignore this type of harmful behavior, like what was done to me, and it continues to other people. Okay, there's a consequence. The consequences kind of like spread out. Like ripples in a pond or something. You throw a rock, okay, you start to have collateral effects all over the place as a consequence of the system breaking down and functioning. Now, instead of functioning the way it's supposed to, it functions in the opposite of the way it's supposed to. That they're always going, or you're going to find very few situations, certain situations of this nature, where there's not a cost. Okay, that doesn't mean that we have to be a rotten human being to people and chastise people and to call them. It's people learn mistakes, or people learn things. They do things that are wrong. They make mistakes. They make whatever error. And they learn something about themselves in the process of making right on those wrongs. They grow as a person. And it's like, why are we going to kick this person out the door when they just learned a really good lesson? They've had some introspection, that they've encountered a situation that's caused them to like build up as a person, to broaden their perspectives, to broaden their toolkit to tackle life. It's like they become more qualified at the end of the day than they were when they began. Okay, and that's these people go. They get a different framework in how they view doing right and wrong, and how they view making things right with people. That they've had this framework where we're making things right as viewed through a lens of being dominated and stuff. That's not how it works at all. Okay, they've just got a set of beliefs and a set of interacting with the world, a set of viewing the world that cause them to interpret it in that way. That they get a different framework and make it right on the people they've made wrong with, or they've done wrong to, which I've identified a few now that I definitely know of, or maybe a handful, or it depends on how far back you go. Some of it goes way back. I've seen some things that look very, very suspect. That go way back, to 2010 or something, 2012, somewhere, in that vicinity. I'll give it as in the recent past. I've this one in the New York Post article. She was not egregiously wrong. It's very clear to me. And then I've got this woman who her foreclosure judge was paid off. Okay, and again, this is a very, very, this lady that her judgment, she would be happy as a lark to get her house back, or to maybe to get another house, to get a settlement that would get her another house of the same quality, that she probably attached, she was attached to that house, if I recall. It's something that meant the world to her, and it's got a new owner now, so maybe that new owner could be bid up. We'll pay you twice what your house is worth. If you sell it, then they can give it to her. She can have do something like that. This bank, big banks, okay, they've got enormous resources, and that means that they have an enormous capacity to do harm that's inherent in those enormous resources. And on the flip side of that, they have an enormous capacity to make it right in a really big way. Okay, this is for her house is a $500,000 house. Okay, $1 million is nothing to them. They can double up the value, make an irresistible offer, to the current owner to make a big paycheck here. You're getting twice what your house worth. Okay, if that doesn't work, do 4 times. Okay, we're $2 million. We're still at just a shred of a penny to this bank. It would make this woman's day. Okay, be the greatest thing ever to happen. One of the greatest things to happen to her in years. And she's not going to sit there. Well, why don't you send her to prison? This type of thing. She's going to be happy and grateful. Okay, because she got justice, and justice is hard to come by. Okay, liberty and justice for all. Okay, well, it's in practice more like liberty and justice for all who fight like hell for it. Okay, or for some portion of those who fight like hell for it and survive there. This is the tone it can take. Okay, she's aware of the scarcity. She's aware of the difficulty. She'll got something big there. Okay, that we don't have to. One person being made whole does not have to entail the destruction of another person. That's not an absolute requirement at all. Okay, the point is we have a safe world, a safe bank, a safe place to do business, a safe honest system, a safe a system we can trust, a system things work. People are made right on. Okay, that we when the destruction of other people comes in to the picture when there's no other option, in terms of restoring a condition of safety in the world, restoring, enforcing justice. Okay, there are some people, unfortunately, who are so egregious in their behavior, we have no choice but to give them the worst types of punishment that exist. I do think it's like the tides are turning, and to be honest with you, I do expect, okay, not as a matter of me being entitled to anything, but I do, what the feeling I've got is I expect this turning tide. It seems to me like it's going to gain momentum. Okay, that's what I see happening here. It's like the picture, the situation is pointing in a certain direction. That direction is causing some shifts in mindsets in people, also their own introspection. And it's like this is going to just take off, and that's what I see happening. It seems like that this is the impetus that's in the air right now. This is the impetus that is in people's being. Okay, this is the and once these impetuses are established, it becomes something where it's just natural to go with them. It's natural to go with the flow in this other direction. And people, through the contagious atmosphere, the contagious nature of social creatures. Okay, it's like people start to there starts to be a little bit of an influence or a crowd psychology, not exactly crowd psychology, but there starts to be, everybody starts to get on the same page. In this thing, it's taken forever to get to this point, okay, but to get to right now, but it's not going to take us forever, to get to the next step, where this is settled and done with, and I would like the unbelievable scale of the harm done to me, to be recognized, okay, that I have been done egregiously wrong. This never should have happened, okay, that one person's humanity does not mean that what done when we was just or right, or even unavoidable. Okay, that it seems looking at it in retrospect. And of course, retrospect's always 2020, but even there, it's like we had to have some knowledge we didn't have, that things have been confusing, that all kinds of confusing elements, all kinds of things, that have occurred. Okay, but here, what would have prevented this as had you acted according to the letter and the spirit of the law. and also the principles of prosecution that are on the Justice Department's website, that following ordinary conventions of human morality, of ordinary, or the spirit and the law, the spirit of the law, and also the spirit of being a law enforcement officer, of preventing harm and stuff like this. Had you acted in accordance with that, okay, this would have been prevented. Okay, that's part of what's inherent in the system not working as it has. Okay, but given that you didn't do that, okay, that you try, not do believe, it's like everybody thinks everything's gonna be fine in the beginning. This is the typical human naivete that people have when they're faced with an impossibly difficult or just a massively problematic situation, a big damn deal that's a big problem potentially. It feels really like a huge, like a massively inconvenient situation. Hit the DOJ's inbox in October 2020. It actually hit the DOJ before that, because the bank had contacted the DOJ before I got to them. Okay, the bank, and this is I've made this comment. Okay, it's like when you report this bank to the police, you've got to beat them to the punch and then report themselves to them. Okay, this is part of the nature of what we're dealing with too here, people. That this bank, without a doubt, has a unique relationship with the law, or it has had for quite a while now. Okay, and that unique relationship needs to be tweaked somehow, it would seem. But given that, okay, given, it's like everything happens, good intentions, and things progress. And again, I do place an enormous responsibility on Merrick Garland for this. Okay, Merrick, he's the one where all the worst stuff. Well, so we've had some bad shit happen recently. Okay, but we would not be here if it wasn't for him. And so this thing, I was tortured via deprivation of a very necessary medication, medically necessary medication. I was tortured for 273 consecutive days. Okay, it was including conditional torture for 273 consecutive days. That was all him. Okay, the massive turning over of state power to this bank. Okay, which this bank has continued, to the state power that's been granted, they have continued to use and abuse it. But the reason it exists in the first place is because of him. Okay, there's no sign anywhere that William Barr, they started out, they've got this cover up and they're running. It's a very simple thing. And, it's like we got a couple of hospitals involved. We got Atrium Health and Novant Health. Then that's something that's easily accomplishable without some kind of massive, like state intervention of turning over, of weaponizing state power, or, it's like weaponizing state power on a very small scale in a way that amounts to nothing, especially in comparison to what's occurred, but this can be something I'll just require there. These people at Atrium Health, they're in the healthcare community. They're involved in crimes against me. And, they can just, contact their buddies and Novant Health and say, here, you make $1 million by writing some healthcare records, and frame it as we're trying to protect this situation. We're trying to, however they do that, make me a boogeyman, say that the end of the world, the fate of the world, and hinges on this, whatever they do, and again, the fate of the world hinges on this, and we also, it's like, we need you to save the world from this dangerous man, and we're also gonna pay you a big sum of money, $200,000, $1 million, where they pay these people these fraudulent healthcare records. But again, it was a very small operation, the cover up. It was not so massive in its scale, so massive in the number of people I've been defamed to, so massive in the trillions of dollars market cap dog pile of corporate entities. It started out, it was just it has the feel, I've explained this as I go along. This is one of the things on my list to explain, but it had to feel like human naivete in the beginning. Everything's going to be all right. I'm going to get an Australian model. They're going to give me and her a load of money. I'm gonna magically be cured. Okay, I'm gonna go to Novant Health and get a new medication regimen. That's gonna be the magic one that saves me. Okay, and there's no magic one. Okay, that's part of this naivete. Unfortunately, it'll prove wrong in the long run. But this is human psychology. It's like, we're going to get me on a new medication regimen at Novant Health. That medication regimen ultimately didn't work, unfortunately. It did not cure me. It was not the magic one. This is how people think. We're going to make some fraudulent healthcare records. That'll cover the bank, because this did, in the beginning, it seemed to, and did in some sense, it did pose a threat of some sort. It's like it has to be dealt with in the right way, or, if we follow the precise letter of the law, this is going to be a massive damn problem. Okay, well, we would have been, and when we would have been at that time in 2020, okay, if we'd have followed the law as it is written, if we'd followed the law, okay, well, we're like going directly into crashing the entire world. Okay, due to the status of this bank and its deferred prosecution agreements, Okay, it's just like the letter of the law says crash the whole world, and what we do right there. So here's the answer. The question: why don't we crash the world? What's our reason for not crashing the world? Okay, it's like we've got to come up with some reason to not crash the whole world, and it's like the answer's baked into the question. You just don't crash the whole world. That's not an option. Okay, that we just ignore that ink. Okay, when ink and paper tells us to crash the whole world, okay, to like cinder, to dismantle civilization itself, through the systemic effects of a failure of this bank through a criminal prosecution, then we just say, well, that's bullshit. We're not going to do that. Okay, that I mean, we've got to not be insane here. Okay, but over time, it's been more and more about the demons the people at the bank have to confront, their discomfort, and it sort of relates to their ego and stuff like this. That the threat that this poses to all this other stuff has been incredibly avoidable for a very long time through the offers I've made, stuff like this. That justification is worn out. It's old. It's older than dirt. Okay, it's like it's been expired forever. That this is a situation run wild, a situation run out of control, a situation of mushrooming, of snowballing, of just one thing after another, and but I'll cut because I gotta cut this video off sometime. It's an hours long video already, I'm sure. It seems like it's been at least 2 hours since I've been making this. Maybe it's not, but but Merrick Garland. What happens? Merrick Garland comes in and he just turns the whole thing over to them. That's why that my suffering's not being attended to, because he's not even checking the emails. He's doing whatever they tell him to do. That's what I picture happening. Is he's become in charge, and he grants them massive state power. And by the time that Pam Bondi and her DOJ are in the mix, they've got a fucking problem that has mutated into something like totally like extreme beyond what words can describe. These people have already got massive state power, and it's like, what are we going to do? And so their state power, they're the state power that they've been allowed to use and abuse. Okay, which it's always an abuse when a private entity uses the state's power. Okay, but it's the word abuse takes on a whole new meaning when you look at the ways that this has been used against me. And it's like the plan was at the beginning. I'll explain more of this. It's like we're going to have the bank involved in fixing the situation. That was the plan in the beginning. They were going to be a necessary part for numerous reasons, or for at least one reason I can think of. I'll have to talk about that when I talk about that. It's like the bank. They're going to be in charge of fixing this situation, or they're going to be. It's going to be them. They're going to have a significant role. So when William Barr was in the mix, it's not like he was totally. William Barr was totally hands on. He was very much hands off. Okay, that these people, they can do their own stuff. Okay, but the facts point to William Barr's DOJ, either William Barr himself or people in that DOJ. Having some kind of influence in which these people at the bank were constrained in what they can do, and this was something where this was a matter to be resolved, not something to be indefinitely. It's like it was work to be done, and good intentions, and faithful acting. Even as they neglected things, even as they betrayed their responsibilities, even as they did things that are definitely wrong, that they're not allowed to do, they had the same basic pattern of what they're supposed to do, they're obligated to do, they didn't do it. What they're not allowed to do, they did it. That aspect, was at play. It was also, my well-being was not totally written off. That I do believe his DOJ, because I sent them the letters. And they start to, and they probably realized it before this, when they've got illegally obtained healthcare records being delivered to people that have been reviewed by like a team of medical doctors, that the idea that the people at this bank are somehow more qualified than a medical doctor to practice medicine is, this whole thing. I think his DOJ too saw this element. There's something up here, and that was part of what influenced them, because once I start communicating with DOJ, they never answer me, but I send them stuff to explain some things, because I know the bank is going to be trying to say things about me, trying to defame me, trying to discredit me, trying to give me a boogeyman narrative, and all these different things that they can do. And so I send them some of my chats with my manager, and I send them some evidence of my character. And following that, that's when I start to have some good things happen to me. I'm starting to, I'm going to get justice out of this. That was what was on the table under that DOJ. Things were looking to turn out good. and then they went to shit once Merrick Garland gets on the scene, and they continue to go to shit in a way that escalated continuously. It was a horrifying or a horrific, just unbelievably brutal, ungodly human suffering, ungodly, unhinged. It was just extreme in the most extreme way that it could be for years under him, with him not doing anything. He won't do anything to hold these people back. He won't do anything whatsoever except do whatever they want him to do and abuse state power. Okay, he was not conservative in his assigning them state power. He was not careful. He was not anything. It was whatever the hell that they wanted. And this included very, very, very serious abuses of me. And I'll say one thing here, that the reason I don't like this thing is, like, here we got a situation where the system has failed me. That this conveys a lack of hope. It conveys a lack of belief in the goodness of people, in the fundamental goodness of people, in the desire of people to do right. This would all seem to be warranted if it weren't for the fact, I'm still breathing. Okay, the system hasn't failed me. Okay, that's it's accurate in some sense, but I don't like it, because what comes to me is I'm still breathing, and the show's not over yet. I'm still breathing, and this story is still being written. Okay, we never know what's going to be in the next chapter. Okay, that this story can have a happy ending, and I'm not going to prematurely call the verdict as to what that verdict is going to be. I'm not going to prematurely condemn the system as having failed me. Okay, when the story has yet to be fully told. Okay. And we got a new the new direction it's taking. Okay, there are signs of hope all over the place. Okay, so I don't want to act in defiance of hope. Act in defiance of the ability for people to do right, of the ability to correct their actions, of the ability to do better, of their desire to make right on the wrongs they've done, to do good, to improve, to free themselves, to all of these things. I don't want to issue a rejection of all of those. Okay, when the signs of them are all over the place. Okay, when it's like that's what's in the air. Okay, that's what's in the air. I don't want to be in a condition of doubt concerning what is blatantly all over the place in front of me as of recent times. Okay, that is coming on the scene in a big way, and I want to give the system a chance. While things are still going, I want to believe in people the same way that I believe in people over and over again. You see, I have a trend. I come back. Okay, I believe in people over and over again, one time after another. Okay, and at the end of the day, by the time it's all said and done, I may not look so foolish and naive. Okay, that my belief in the people on the other end was based in reality, and that my continued belief in them yielded results through its persistence and through its reflection, moving something that reflects an actually existing reality about the people on the other end.